All right, so let's get started at setting up a cloud-based continuous integration environment from zero. One of the things that we're going to do here is we're going to create a new GitHub repo, and that GitHub repo will check it out into AWS Cloud9, which is a cloud-based development environment, and then we'll set it up so that it'll run our code and lint it and test it every single time we make a change. So this is called continuous integration, and really the flavor here is a new flavor in that it's a cloud-based continuous integration environment. So I'm going to go over to Cloud9, and Cloud9 is something that is part of AWS, and you can use it using the free tier. I'm assuming that you have an AWS account. Go ahead and create an environment. So we'll go ahead and say hello. We'll call this the hello environment, and then I'll scroll over to the next step. And from here, I would recommend leaving everything default. So create a new instance for the environment, leave it as a micro, the platform, leave it as Amazon Linux, and then we'll go ahead and go to this next step. All right. From here, what'll happen is it'll take approximately, let's say 30 to 60 seconds, and then this will enable a cloud-based development environment. What's really handy about this is that because this is hosted inside of AWS, you can get a faster network connection. You also don't have to worry about the security credentials. It's provisioned with the accounts credentials that you created the Cloud9 environment with. So it solves a lot of problems that typically come up with a development environment. Additionally, it auto times out after the interval that you set. In this case, I let the default set to 30 minutes. So it's really also very cost effective. So I would say for 100% of students that are using AWS, this would be one of the resources that you should use. It's incredibly powerful and solves many problems that are really tricky to solve unless you have advanced skills. Okay, so now that the Cloud9 environment is set up, there's a couple things that I'll show you that are helpful. So first of all, I would typically just go through here and make sure that you understand that it's got Python 3 installed. You also should be aware of things like if you do ls-la, it'll show you not only the directories contents, but also the invisible files. That'll come in handy in a second. And then also it comes pre-installed with a lot of tools like Docker is already installed, for example. You've got Git is already installed. So basically all the commands that you're gonna need. So what's the first thing we should do is create a Git repo. So I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to say new, and we'll call this repo hello to match the name of our development environment. Hello demo repo. I'm going to leave it as public because for students, I would recommend a lot of your projects to be public so you can create a rich portfolio. Go ahead and initialize this repo with a readme. And then this is actually very important is for the git ignore, go ahead and select Python. What this is going to do is it's going to make sure that there aren't garbage files that are checked into your project. That's really all you need to do. Okay, now we'll go ahead and say creating a repository. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this button here, clone or download. Let's go ahead and copy that. Next, I'm going to go back to my Cloud9 environment and I'm going to attempt to check it out, and it won't work. The reason why is that it's going to require me to set up an SSH key. So I'm going to say git clone, and it will say could not read from the remote repository, which is what I was expecting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create SSH keys locally here. So SSH hyphen keygen -t RSA. I'll press return a few times, and that will create a file here that I'll get access to by just running the cat command. So I'll highlight this, type in the command cat like that, and then that'll paste out the contents of that key. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the contents. You notice I start here at the beginning of SSH RSA all the way down to where the IP address is. Now I'm going to go over to GitHub, and I'm going to go to my profile, and I'm going to select the settings. From here, I'll go to SSH and GPG keys. I'll create new SSH key, and I'll paste that in there. And we'll call this hello Cloud9, so I know what it is. This is always a good idea to make sure that you are meticulous about your documentation. Okay, next up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now attempt that clone again, and this time it'll work, and I'm going to use the up arrow. This is a great way to reuse a command. I clone it, awesome. Now I have the hello repo, and we're ready to go to the next step. So now that I've got access to that, typically what I would do is start to build out the scaffolding for my project. So one of the first things that I typically do is I will cd into that directory. So let's go into the hello directory here, and then we can actually add some things inside of that readme file. So let's go ahead and let's actually run an echo command. If you see this, this will basically append to this readme file a line, and if I double click on it, you can see that inside of the hello directory, this directory, this hello directory, you can see that I put some stuff inside of there, and then from here, let's just go through the steps of what's required to check in the code. So I would say git add hello, or git add readme. Next up, I would say git commit, and we'll say adding name of the repo. And now this is something that's going to come up here is the first time you use a new repository, you're going to have to set these settings. So I'm going to go ahead and set these up. So I'm going to do git config, and I'll just change it out to my name. This will be no gift. And then next here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to append my name here. So I'm going to go ahead and say noah.gift@gmail.com. There you go. And then I will do the final step, which is amend the author. So this is a one-time only thing. I'll go ahead and say write this out. So Control-0, and then I'll return, and then I'll do a Control-X to exit. Great. So now that I've got that done, I'm basically set up now for a full round trip, and I can read and write back to that repo. And so let's go ahead and double check that repo and make sure that we can see the changes. If I go to hello here, it should show up in the list of repos. There we go. And you can see, in fact, I did make that change. You can see it was made just 33 seconds ago. Okay, great. So we got the GitHub set up. So now let's go to the next step, which is typically I would then go and create a Python virtual environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Python 3-m venv. And at this point, what I typically do as a convention is I always create the virtual environment with a dot file here so that it's invisible. It's not, showing, because if you work on a lot of projects, you'll have a lot of virtual environments. So I put a dot so it won't show up. And then I also name it the same thing as the name of the repo. That way I don't get confused. It's like, well, okay, which virtual environment do I use? Just if you use the name of the repo that you set up, then you know that you can always correlate the name of that virtual environment with your repo. Okay, once you set that up, then the next step is to actually activate it. And to activate a environment, you say source /dot hello bin activate. And now let's go ahead and verify that it works. So if I say which Python 3, you'll see that it's going to refer to the Python that's in this virtual environment. And you also can see this .hello here. So the real problem that virtual environment solves is that you don't have to worry about packages being installed in the main system's location and then having conflicts. It's really common to have a specific version of Python that one GitHub project needs, and then have another specific package that another one needs. And so this really eliminates all those problems for you. Okay, so now that we've got that, one of the things that I would typically do is make my life a little bit easier here by creating an alias, so that all I have to do when I go into an environment is basically type a command in, and it will cd into the GitHub repo and also source the virtual environment. So I'm going to deactivate it first so you can see this. Right, and so now that's deactivated, and I'm going to type in pwd. And this is the path where my source code lives. So this is a very important step in order to create this automated alias that I set up. So next, what I can do is I can use the VI editor to actually edit the bash RC file. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say vim tilde / bash RC. And then I can go to the bottom. I typically use Shift G and go to the bottom. And by the way, you can use any editor you want, like Emacs or Nano or something like that. And then I'm going to create an alias in here. So I'll put a comment that says alias, and then I'll paste in this command and I'll say alias hello. And then I put in this sequence. So I say cd, and I put in the path where my source code is checked out. And then I do this AND operation. So essentially what this does is it says go on to the next step if this first step is successful. And then I do the activation. So I say source tilde / dot hello bin activate. There we go. And now I can close this out. So I go escape, and then I do colon WQ, return. And then because I'm in this actual shell, I'll have to source it so that it knows that alias. And then the next time I open this up, it should remember this alias. There we go. If I source this, if I type in the word hello now, if I just, let's say we'll go to the temp directory, and then I type in hello, or even you can actually type in alias, and it will show you all of the different aliases. And you can see here's that alias that's set up. Now if I type in hello, it automatically does what I want, which is cd into the GitHub repo and automatically activate my virtual environment. And this is a very, very handy pattern that you can use on any project. Okay, now that we've got that set up, we're ready to go to the next step, which is to create a very simple makefile scaffolding. And so what I typically will do here is I'll run the touch command and I'll type in makefile. And then really I will typically use kind of a common scaffolding for any makefile that I set up. So let's go ahead and double click on this makefile here, and we can edit it. Now this is very important here, is that makefiles like tabs. So I'm going to click on this gear icon, and I'm going to say I'm sorry, I'm going to click on the spaces, and I'm going to go to tabs here. So let's say convert to tabs, and then now we've got tabs. And then what I'll do is I will paste this in, which is a some info that's in the setup file that I've shown for this project, and then I'll typically just use this scaffolding to set things up. So we'll say install. That looks good. Whoops. And then for test, it would look something like this. And this will be really whatever your project is. So I'm going to comment this out for now because we don't have any testing set up yet. But you would change this out to be what your project's testing is. And then for lint, I'm going to create a hello script in here. So I'm going to just call this hello.py. All right, that looks pretty good. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a requirements file, because this is how I typically do an installation. So I'll go ahead and say touch requirements.txt like this. And then inside of the requirements file, I can put in pylint, just like that. And this is where you could also put in pandas or scikit-learn or whatever you want. Now that I've set that up, I can use the power of the makefile. So what I can do is I can run make install. And then this is really handy because I can use this same technique later when I do an integration with CircleCI. All right, so that's set up now. Pretty much we're ready to go. The only other thing here is to create a really simple file so I can lint it. So I'll go ahead and say touch hello.py, and this will be some source code, and we'll just say def my function here, and we'll say return 1, and then I'll just call it right? So this function is basically going to do barely anything, but I tested out. It looks like it works. Maybe I even will print it here. Okay, so now that I've got that set up, what I can do is I can run make lint, make sure that the lint works. Looks like the code is acceptable. And if you wanted to check, test out making it fail, do something like this, make some bad code in there, run the lint again, and you can see that it fails. Okay, great. Now that I've got that set up, really we're ready to go for integrating CircleCI. So I'm going to push all this code first. So I'm going to say git status. I'm going to say git add star, git commit, adding initial setup, push this, git push, and then really I'm going to go over to CircleCI here and finish this off. So I'm going to go to CircleCI and I'm going to select go to app. And once I log in, I have to select the right organization. It's going to be my username. And then there's something on the left here that says add projects. So I'm going to click on add project right here. And you can see the hello repo right there. I'm going to say set up project. And then it's going to ask me some things. So I'm going to say Linux, and then I'll also select Python. And once we do that, I can copy this config.yaml file. But notice it says you have to create a folder called .circleci. So I'm going to go back to Cloud9 here, and I'm going to expose hidden files. So if you see this icon, this little gear icon, click on this, say, show hidden files, right? So we want to make sure that we show hidden files. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make directory .circleci like that. That's not spelled right. CircleCI, and then I'm going to touch .circleci config.yaml. Okay, now that I've got that file set up, this is going to be pretty easy. I just go here to this to this sample file here, and I'm going to copy it to my clipboard, and then I'm going to go back to Cloud9 and just paste it in. And that's not the right paste. Let's make sure we get this paste in here. You can also just copy it like this as well. Okay, we'll copy that and we'll paste this in here. Okay, so I'm going to clean this up a little bit. And really the only thing, a couple things to point out here is that a lot of times I like to just get rid of comments because they just add a lot of noise. This is their own Docker container that's running Python 3.6.1. You could change it to maybe a later version. I think CircleCI has some later versions of Python. This is just a sample directory here or file. You could also put your own Docker container as well if you want to do something kind of advanced. This is good. We want to do the installation, but I'm going to actually use my code here, which is make install, right? Which uses the makefile command that I already set up. Why not just test the exact way that I'm doing it? And then I'm also going to get rid of this stuff here, comments, to make it smaller, get rid of this test report for now. And really I just want it to lint. So I'm going to say run lint. And this is just a description. It doesn't do anything. This is just, it'll show up as the name of the command. And then again, from here, I use that make lint style that I did before, right? And then what's nice is the exact commands that I run locally also get run inside of CircleCI. So that looks like it works. Again, I'm going to say git status. I'm going to do a git add. So git add.circleci. And then from here, let's push this, adding circle. Okay, push this. And once I push it, it takes literally a couple seconds, I can go back to Cloud9, and then I can go to this project here, and hello, I can say set up project, and I can click on this start building command because I've got the CircleCI config integrated. And then you can see here in real time, I can actually look and watch what it's doing. And it's going to run exactly what I told it to do. It's going to do a make install, which is going to install the packages. And then it's going to do a make lint, which will lint the packages. So if I click on this here, you can see the commands. There we go. Look, it's doing the make install. And then after this is done, this will take just a second. It'll do a make lint. There we go. And in fact, a run lint, right? So this shows up as the name that I set there. Really, we're ready to go. And so there's further things that we could do to make it a little bit fancier. And one of them is set up a GitHub badge. So let's see here. I'm going to go back to this icon here, I believe, and then go to status badge. And you can see here, here's the past badge. I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to go to my Cloud9 environment and go to the readme file and just paste this in. We'll replace this right like that. And then I'm going to do a get status again. Add the readme. Let's say adding status. And if I push this, I can now go back to GitHub. And if I refresh this, a status badge will appear. There we go. And look, if I click on this, I can actually go and it'll show me the status of the build. So that's it. That's the soup to nuts way to set up Cloud9, and you can extend this later on your own.